Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
All right, we're back on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network with a cavalcade of stars. This is the Code 47 podcast, episode 105. I am your Trek Lord of West Michigan, Charlie Carden, coming at you with four of the four members of my crew. Tonight, we're going to be talking a little bit about Strange New Worlds and some great news in our first segment. But let's go around the horn. We have the fantastic, super pink-haired, fresh from Barbie, the fantastic Kay. How are you this evening?
I am doing fantastic.
I love it. My regular sideman for the last 30 years and my co-founder of the Secret Friends Unite podcast, who I am glad to have on board, the fantastic Todd Oxtra. How are you?
Wonderful. It's always good to join talking about Trek with awesome people.
Excellent. And we have spinning around in her chair for some reason, my Trekker from Chicago, Jen Watson. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing good. And my other side man who loves to talk Enterprise with me, my regular steady Eddie, saver of the show, Peter Stein on the bottom. How are you, sir?
Hey, everybody. Doing good.
Excellent. Peter, you sound a little soft. Turn yourself up.
No.
That's
Well, you did tell him that he was the side piece, so
Side piece.
Was I was
Let
gonna
it
say-
boast.
I was going to say yes. You know, remember what Peter on Family Guy said. You knew what this was. Oh, but anyway, so we'll talk very briefly about a couple of news features before we jump in to talking about the two most recent episodes of Strange New Worlds. San Diego Comic-Con, the little independent Comic-Con, the Comic-Con that was happened this past weekend, and we had three pretty significant pieces of Star Trek news. But before we talk about that, want to give some proper love and credence to the folks that make our Patreon possible. Over 6 months now, we've been producing great content over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. And we want to give love and respect to the folks that make that possible. I am talking about, on our BFFs level, Sean, Stella, and Henry Nias, the Nias family, your friend and mine, Missy Merchant, and her pal, Andy Milliken, and Jamie Prinky. So visit, please, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, and you can try us out for a week for free. Check out our great content. We've got a lot of fun stuff over there, and we would love it if you would stay on board with us. So anyway, there goes the commercialism, and we'll get into talking about some Star Trek. So guys, we have three stories. We'll kind of lump them all together because I know that we're all really well-versed. We got a great 5-minute sample of what we can expect in season 5 of Star Trek Discovery early next year. We got a awesome trailer for Lower Decks, which we're going to see on September 7th. And we got the news that in probably episode 9, just a couple of weeks from now, of Strange New Worlds, we will get Star Trek's first ever musical episode. Oh my gosh. Well, I don't need to ask Todd which piece of news excites him the most. So I'm going to start with Kay. What's the winner for you out of these three great bits?
I mean, I'm going to be honest, probably the musical episode. This just gave me kind of the Once More with Feeling vibes from Buffy, where I cannot wait. I mean, we did see the little montage in the Star Trek Files or whatever it was called, where Una and Spock sang together in the lift when they were stuck. So I know that I'm just going to have the entire soundtrack of this episode. I mean, because the other stuff, I knew it was coming. Like, I know we're going to get season 5 of Discovery. I know we're going to get, the next season of Lower Decks, and I'm excited about those things. But a musical episode, this is going to be like the fantasy episode of season 1, and I am so here for it.
Oh, I love it. Good deal. Todd, you're a very big musical guy. It's kind of your bread and butter. So you've been talking about this for decades. So, I mean, is it too big to fail? I mean, is it going to meet your expectations? I mean, be truthful.
Well, I looked at who actually did the writing for this. So Kay Hanley, Letters Cleo, that's a band. They know how to make music. Tom Pulse, Letters Cleo, also part of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend's a phenomenal show. Great songs and knows how to put it in a TV context. I love musical episodes. I think it's one of the greatest things in the world. There've been, the level of excellence varies, but I mean, I just love it. It's fun. I cannot wait. Kate, you're absolutely right. Once More with Feeling is one of my favorite things in the world because they took the premise of the musical. So I'm really curious to see how they explain how this happens. Is it a anomaly that makes everyone
an anomaly?
It definitely looks like an anomaly, which is going to be even better because it's like the Dancing Demons. No, something can't be right now.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
And, boy, Letters to Cleo, one of those songs popped up in my rotation lately. It's that here and now. Isn't that the one? Am I crazy? I'm very excited about that.
Well, I mean, you are, Charlie, but I don't think it has to do with the Letters to Cleo song.
You don't have to be crazy to work here, but it helps. Oh my gosh. All right, Jen, are you going to contribute the trifecta or you got something else to say? Break it down for me.
Musical episode for sure, 100%. I love musicals so much, and I am so stoked for this. I've wanted a musical episode of Star Trek since I started watching Star Trek, I think. And when I saw the list of episode titles for this season of Strange New Worlds, I was like, Subspace Rhapsody. Oh, are we getting a musical or am I getting my hopes up? And
it's such a great reference too.
They're going to bring back Freddie Mercury. It'll be unbelievable. Oh my goodness. Well, Peter, you are my beloved contrarian. Do you got something different to say? Where do you, I mean, to be a contrarian when Todd Oxtra is present, that's like David and Goliath. Oh my God. So, but anyway, I would love to hear your take on these three bits of news. Which one had you fired up?
Okay. Lower Decks.
Yeah.
Had my attention the most. I knew the musical episode was coming. And like you, I love musicals, but I've also seen them done iffy with Once Upon a Time, for instance. So
that is fair.
It's one of those, like, it could be great and it could be like a wonderful follow-up to the Elysian Kingdom from last season.
Yeah.
Or I could be cringing into the couch. So that's why I'm like, oh no.
All right.
Looks solid.
You know, and again, I'll be contrarian right along with you. The musical thing is less for me than it is for everyone else. And I was in musicals throughout high school. I was in 4 different shows. I'm a music guy. I dig that. But I kind of dig Lower Decks more, which is even funnier because it was Kay and Peter on this very show that had to kind of pull me out of my depression and anxiety and self-loathing when it came to Lower Decks. Because yeah, you did it. It was.
You're
it was
welcome, Charlie.
I was really lodged in it because my 2 prior co-hosts really disliked Lower Decks, and so as I brought them on to talk about it, they just kind of dragged me down.
They had no taste.
You know, I don't necessarily want to commit to that, but okay. So yeah,
I don't know them, so I can.
Oh my gosh, Todd's looking around like I'm not saying a damn thing. Now, Todd, the next big work for Lower Decks is going to be for the 2 of you to gang up on Oxtra and get him to watch the show because he watched it, was like, yeah, I don't get it. I don't care. Whatever.
No, I got it. I got it. I just it didn't deliver to me. I just felt like it was too on the nose and just didn't do anything for me. And I get people love it, but it is. I've always told this show. Lower Decks. I've watched a lot of Trek. Some of that stuff references there to really enjoy it is well beyond my wealth of knowledge. So unless I think it's really tributes to your knowledge to really get a lot of those jokes, if not, even me, who I've watched, I think almost every series, I'm like, it's okay.
I mean, not necessarily. My boyfriend Scott watches Lower Decks with me, and he hasn't watched all of the Star Trek the way that I have, and I wind up having to explain some of the jokes to him, but he still finds it funny. So I understand it's a matter of taste, for sure. So if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. But I just, I don't think that it's specifically in the references, especially in these more recent seasons where they're very much doing their own thing and even referencing themselves more than necessarily all the old stuff.
TOS. those old scientists, which we'll talk about next time.
I don't know. And I agree because I haven't seen anything beyond, TNG, anything older than TNG. And so I know that a lot of the references go over my head, but again, it is down to taste. And so I know that I'm missing a lot of the references, but I still find that the stuff that I do get is very witty and very fun.
Well, it's very Rick and Morty. It's very Rick and Morty to me. And to me, Rick and Morty is hit and miss. Yeah. It's
we won't beat up on you too dramatically. Because that's not fair.
Yes.
More heart and nervousness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt.
Agreed, Jen. Agreed.
All right. Well, cool. Well, let's wrap on that. And again, Lower Decks season 4, September 7. Discovery season 5, which we didn't talk about. We got a nice 5-minute vignette. That season, we're expecting that in February. And then the Strange New Worlds musical episode, which was the overwhelming favorite, we are likely to see within about 2 weeks. And do keep in mind that we will be taking a little break because myself and Missy and Kay and my wife April will all be in Las Vegas for Star Trek Las Vegas, which will prevent us from putting out another episode. So when we return, we'll have a chance to probably talk about this. So, but before that happens, we are going to talk about the 2 most recent episodes of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, episodes 5 and 6. A lot of fun. I'm going to tee up Kay to read about episode 5. Let her rip.
All right. So in episode 5, we had an accident or a shuttle accident leads Spock's Vulcan DNA to be removed by aliens, making him fully human and completely unprepared to face T'Pring's family during an important ceremonial dinner. And this was something where I just had to assume that Ethan Peck had so much fun playing Spock because there was so much energy and dynamicism that he's normally not able to put into Spock that just flowed through that character, and the amount of comedic timing that he was able to play off. I mean, not to mention Anson Mount's amazing comedic timing as well, just being that awkward dad figure to Spock as he's trying to smooth everything over. And you had the drama, you had the love interest between him and Chapel finally coming to fruition. I'm sure that Jen will be able to speak to dressed as Chapel. Maybe just a little bit. But it really was a great episode where and I think the episode was actually written by the same person who did some of Schitt's Creek, so I could definitely see that kind of like awkward adorability that came through.
That's not surprising.
Yeah, and that was the thing when I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, that's not surprising at all. And I think it did just amazing things because it was both funny and very poignant, and you had these like ephemeral space, like gaseous entities who were apparently their entire culture was based on like bureaucracy,
customer service. Yes. Please press 1.
Well, that was, and the request wasn't made during the appropriate return window.
When was that?
It was amazing. So the entire thing was just, again, I keep thinking that there's going to be a dud in Strange New Worlds because they keep hitting it out of the park. And I have yet to find one. Every episode is just absolutely wonderful to watch.
I said it at the beginning of the season because, as I'd mentioned, I had a screener where I watched the first 6, which included this one. There wasn't a dud in the bunch. And going into this back half, I've seen episode 7, which probably a lot of you have had because it dropped at SDCC. And then I've seen episode 8, all so uniquely different and spectacular. Jen, let's move on to you. Your thoughts?
This was amazing. Who would have thought that Spock would have been the funniest character on the show, and yet he is.
Yes.
And
I love logic.
They bring his mother Amanda back, and it's the same actress who was her on Discovery,
right?
Which is great. And just more of his relationship with his mother is being explored there. We see from her what her life is like as a human living on Vulcan, and that's something that hadn't been explored before. And of course, the whole Spock and Chapel of it all is I'm just absolutely delighted by that. Even if it can't last or won't last, I'm going to enjoy it while I have it.
Yeah, big time. Oh my goodness, Todd, how about you?
It was funny because it reminded me of Seinfeld in Festivus. And apparently the Vulcans, they celebrate the airing of grievances. Yeah. And I'm like, that is so Vulcan. But man, once again, Spock showing that restraint to not tell them to STFU, stop attacking everyone, including my mother, who, you know, and then also my captain, who made these wonderful things for you. And I love the husband of T'Pring's,
my God. Yeah,
mother.
he was so milquetoast. I loved it.
He loved it, but he didn't, because he wasn't allowed. So I really... Yeah.
And Todd, you did earn episode title of Vulcan Festivus. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a great episode because and I was trying to remember, was there a subplot? Obviously, the subplot was trying to go after the entity to resurrect it. So, and I like, and the great thing about Strange New Worlds is they give everybody time. And I think why this show succeeds is because it's not burdened with an overall story arc where they have to continue the narrative or the plot. They can just do fun standalone episodes, which are fulfilling, really build characterization, and really give everyone a spotlight, which I really love.
Totally. Yeah, the overarching plot is definitely the characters versus an actual weird story.
And it's a big relief, even though some of those really worked. And again, it got to be a little bit too much. 3 seasons of Picard doing that, now 4 seasons of Discovery doing that. So this has become so much more accessible. So much so that my barber, the guy who gave me Pike's Peak, said to me when I was getting my haircut a couple of weeks ago, I finally watched your guys' show. I finally checked it out, and I said, good, because it's easy and accessible. You can watch it. You don't need to know anything. It's a bunch of people on a ship. They're doing a bunch of stuff. They're in space, and you can just enjoy the fun parts of it. So, cool. Peter.
I hated this episode.
What?
With a burning passion.
Okay. Break it down for us. What's up?
Okay. Well, one, stripping Spock of his Vulcanness has been done before and done better.
What is it? This side of paradise or paradise?
Or even Amok time. And it just seemed a little tropey to me in that regard. Also, Spock forgetting how to Vulcan just seemed very unlikely. He still has his memories. And they even mention at the end of the episode, Vulcan emotions are far more powerful than human emotions. So if he's left as a human, his emotions are not nearly as intense. And so his practice control would be able to help him through that, which they did show towards the end of the episode when he's able to hold the tea and all of that.
Yeah, that's valid. I understand.
It was too much for me. And I didn't appreciate the scene where they had everyone telling Spock how Vulcans operate, because it felt like they were mocking him, just the way that they spoke. I don't think that that's how the writers intended it. I don't think that's how the actors intended it, but that's how it felt to me. Because you have to remember, Spock is one of my favorite characters growing up. And yeah. There were a lot of things I didn't like about this. I mean, a lot of things funny.
Spock, bacon. That to me was a little bit of a dichotomy.
That was too much too.
Vulcans are vegetarians, exactly. So, and they don't touch food with their hands. That's a very Vulcan thing.
And for me, the whole thing felt like the only point. And yes, there are other things, but it felt like the main point of the episode was to get T'Pring out of the way, make Spock kind of a jerk, make T'Pring also kind of a jerk, and then so they can push this chapel narrative, which we know can't go anywhere.
Yeah, because we know it doesn't.
So I know I realize everyone else liked it, but for me, it just
I appreciate you standing up. I appreciate you standing up. Yeah, no, I totally. And I enjoyed it for the funny ha-has. But Peter, in some ways, I see what you're saying. But yes, I did appreciate it for the funny ha-has and the setup for kind of that part of the narrative of this. But yeah, there were certain kind of glaring omissions. But yeah, the T'Pring's mother. But I mean, yeah, she was very one note. The dad I found amusing. But yeah, ultimately it was kind of a zero-sum game. But it does kind of personify the fact that everything in this is very self-contained. We're already seeing, as we go forward into future episodes, that the Chapel and Spock relationship really can endure, and it's already kind of headed in that direction. So, but for the time, I found it fun. So,
Can I ask a question about that? Because obviously I don't know a lot of the TOS stuff because that's the stuff I watched with my dad back in the days.
I love Todd's questions. Break it down.
So I mean, and is that the problem with a show that where a lot of these characters are headed? That we can't have him with D'Pring unless there's a Vulcan divorce eventually, right?
Well,
so is that the necessary evil? You have to we have to show that he has a past, and we know they don't do that, but it's cool to show some.
See, the thing is, they already part of the problem is they kind of shot themselves in the foot in the previous season, because in TOS it's implied that they haven't really interacted all that much before you see her in
true.
In Amok Time.
Okay.
And so they already shot themselves in the foot on that one. And then the issue with Chapel and TOS continuity is the whole thing is there's unrequited emotion, there's unrequited relationship emotions going on there, and it's very clear that Spock hasn't and doesn't. So that's the issue for me. I know a lot of people don't care about that. I get that. You're fine. But
and a lot of people haven't seen TOS. I think this is the thing.
And that's my thing is I realize that a lot of people haven't seen it, and so they don't know that context. That's okay. But coming from someone who has seen it, it's weird.
And that's just a follow-up question. Like, I was worried about this because, like, if Spock has essentially, when he meets Kirk, is a certain level, it feels like all these episodes we're getting is showing more growth with Spock. So it's like, how do they explain like he's kind of like this level during TOS versus all of the experiences and emotional and connections he's craving? So it's an interesting approach.
It's easy. The plot armor for Vulcans is the colonar, the wiping of emotions.
The colonoscopy?
The colonoscopy, yes. The Vulcan colonoscopy.
I mean, again, I will openly admit I haven't seen TOS. I have seen some of the movies with the original cast, but it does seem like what Strange New Worlds is doing is allowing Spock more emotional volatility as he's coming to terms with his emotions. And then you're seeing him in TOS and in those subsequent movies as someone who is more grounded, as someone who has kind of figured that, like, a little bit more balance between his human and Vulcan side. Is that... Like, am I coming to correctly with that assumption?
There's something there. The thing that I don't want to do a soapbox, but here you go. The thing with Spock in the original series is he's very, very strictly Vulcan, and it's Kirk and McCoy who pull him out of that.
That's very true.
And so seeing him, like, as sweet as it was, and I will give them that in this episode. The moment between Amanda and Spock, it was well written, it was well done, it was well acted. Like, kudos, okay. But Spock's relationship with his mom in this particular part of his life is iffy because of how much rejection he's had from Vulcan society,
right?
And
so
his father,
too,
from his father, which they do mention. And so he's putting all of his humanity into a box because he doesn't want to deal with that. And so you have Kirk and McCoy and the rest of the Enterprise crew who pull him out.
Could this be argued that that's what's bringing him to do that, though? Is that they're kind of showing that journey of him trying to, like, find that balance of his humanity, and he can't. And so then at that point, he ends up kind of burying it. And that's where you get Spock.
It depends on how they do it. It's just from what I've seen, that doesn't seem to be where they're going. I could be wrong, but it's just how it seems. It doesn't seem like they're fully aware of how that dynamic fully works. And if they're doing their own continuity, fine. It's fine. You can do your own thing.
The Romulans broke time, so anything can happen now.
That's very true.
Exactly. We're 92, so I mean,
and in the cage, he's very different. And
yes, in the cage, he's very emotional, but he is also, this is before Strange New Worlds in the cage.
So the idea is that the journey from the cage to what we see in TOS is the journey of Strange New Worlds. And I think it's cool that it's other characters are having a hand in helping him to see who he is, who he can be. And I don't think it necessarily contradicts what's in TOS. It is, of course, an interpretation of character. And however you interpret the character, I'm not going to begrudge you for what your interpretation is. I like seeing it. I like seeing that there is more focus on the characters, especially because in TOS, a lot of it was very plot focused. It was plot driven. It was, here's an episode, here's something that happens. Modern TV storytelling allows us to have a little bit more exploration of character, and that's something that I think Strange New Worlds does very well. So I'm eager and excited to see where they do go with it. I think that Strange New Worlds is better about staying closer to canon than maybe Discovery was.
I agree.
Evidence that they're trying to do that, and I think that they're going to introduce things that are not necessarily going to, contradict the canon. They might play with it a little bit, like we're seeing in some of the next episode. That things are sort of technically true, but I mean, I can come up with that when we're on that episode too. So
right.
Charlie,
there's some room.
What's up?
I was going to say, you remember the term retcon? The comics love so much. This is what I feel like that everything is going to have to happen because to satisfy a show from the 60s that has a different mindset. And that's why I say Strange New Worlds is a great entry point for everybody. It's not going to satisfy everybody that has a history with Star Trek. But for me, I love what it does.
As TOS gets further away, I mean, we're pushing 60 years since that show came on. You know, it's 2023. That show came out in 1966. So it's getting, those fans are dying off. I hate to say it, just come right out and say it. But more
Peter's not dead, Charlie. Peter's still alive.
I'm sorry, Peter, but even the uniform,
dude.
Even that uniform you're wearing is
He's
from
much
the 80s.
Younger than us. Yes,
he is. He's much younger than us. God, guys, this has been great. But we should move on to the next episode. Peter, I'll give you chops, but I want to give Jen first rights at the next episode because I feel like we talked way more than her. So, Peter, read the summary, and then we'll kick to Jen.
Okay, so episode 6, Lost in Translation. Uhura seems to be the only one who can hear a strange sound. When the noise triggers terrifying hallucinations, she enlists an unlikely assistant to help her track down the source. Technically enlists himself, but
well, that's what he does.
Have at it.
Have at it.
Sorry, I have cats fighting in the background.
I heard Oliver going at it back there.
They're fine. So this is kind of what I was talking about, where they're saying the things that are sort of, they're still technically true. Kirk, the guest that enlists himself is Kirk. It's Jim Kirk from this timeline.
The real Kirk,
sort of. He is like the Kirk that we are he's supposed to be like our Kirk. I continue to love him as Kirk, and especially after this episode. He is charming. He is kind. He is taking Uhura's claims at face value very seriously, and he wants to help people. And I think those are some of the core qualities that
Kay is dying. I gotta let her go next.
Dying. No, if you got something to say, go for it.
Please.
No, I want to say that I'm so excited to talk with Jen specifically about this episode, because I remember when we watched the movies and you were like, I apologize because this is not the Kirk that you're supposed to see.
Right.
And the entire time I was watching this one and tomorrow, all I could think about was you telling me that this is not the Kirk from TOS. Right. And I was looking and I was like, oh, freaking A, is this Kirk? Because I love this Kirk. So just watching this episode, I was like, dang, I'm like, Kirk is awesome. Kirk is like, he's kind of like, he's a little bit of like, you can tell that he's a little bit of like maybe a womanizer. He's a little bit, full of himself, but also he's really, really caring and compassionate. He was the only one, like you said, that took Uhura seriously during this entire episode.
And I mean, of course, Pike did too when it was brought to his attention.
Yes.
Because Pike is also kind and empathetic, and a good leader, and he's also going to take credit for the things that if this goes sideways, it's all me. He says that. So I liked this. I was concerned that this was going to be a horror episode, like
there's a lot of elements to that for sure.
Season, and I was really glad to see that it wasn't. There were some aspects of it that were a little horrific, like the zombie Hemmer. Great to see Hemmer back, also, even if it was just for a little bit. But as an exploration of grief and how you can be a Starfleet officer and figure out how to deal with grief, this was such a cool episode to have. Just to see it and to have Kirk be one of the people that's sort of guiding Uhura through that. It was really cool to see. I liked seeing that relationship start.
That's some serious kitty. Todd.
Oh, I really enjoy this episode. It just really makes me frustrated that and my wife actually remarked, because we watched the end of this episode together, she goes, "Are there any aliens on the ship?" I'm like, oh, they kind of killed off the chief engineer. They brought in Carol Kane, who's kind of an alien. So I'm like,
yeah, she is. I mean, and there's all kinds of background aliens and stuff.
But she looks exactly like a human.
Una is an alien.
Yeah,
correct. But she looks exactly like a human. So that's what I'm saying. Right. No one really stands out. Where I thought Discovery, I thought they brought in some folks that looked, they were like, and having an Andorian on the cast was really cool to me. And I really liked him because he was because we've seen a billion Vulcans. So I thought it was like, and then in Discovery, we've only had, the folks that you interviewed, Kay, being, I forgot what the alien, that was awesome to
Linus,
see. So it's kind of a miss to see that we're not getting more diversity in regards to, it's almost all people who look humanoid. I would like to see more, but it was really cool because the horrific nature of grief and not dealing with it is paralyzing. And the fact that you have the community, and we even have Uhura making that joke, like, I'm a communication officer, I can't even communicate my problems. So I thought that was really compelling. And I'm loving that the relationship with Kirk and Uhura wasn't romantic. It was just complimentary. Yeah, it was great.
They nailed it.
I thought they really did a great job, and dealing with the fact and, understanding that life forms have many different appearanrances and properties, and being part of a energy source is a huge, and that's only part of it. Like, Pike's like, they'll deal with it. We'll get another gas station. If this was a real argument in the real world, there would be a real dynamic of saying, is it worth using that energy source versus exploiting the people?
Right.
And that was a missed opportunity in this, but still, I loved it. I love the fact that it was a horror focused episode, and the going crazy element is always a trope in every series we've ever seen. How they actually execute it is what differentiates it. I thought this was done really well. And the challenge of a 42-minute episode is always how are you going to do it and deliver it. I thought it was well done, and I think all of these characters, and I'm glad Kirk got some interaction with Lon based on that callback, which was cool too. Yeah. So I just love how they're building this world and not having to solve and do everything right away. They know they've got time. I hope they've got time. I want many, many seasons of the show. So I hope they can just continue on their pace versus saying, we've got to land the ship because we're done in 2 seasons. I hope this can go on.
Very true. All right, Peter, please tell me you enjoyed this one. I really, really hope you liked this one. You're smiling. That's good, right?
I did. I enjoyed this one.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah, I did not like the beginning scene with Spock and Chapel, but I liked the rest of it.
Right.
Because that just felt like oh no, we're going to do this, and then all of a sudden, So, I don't know. Anyway, but I thought this episode was good. As everyone knows, I was super excited to see my boy Hemmer, even though he was not really there.
He was the zombie.
I love seeing the recording of him, especially, you can't blow the ship up. Don't touch that. Don't be so gullible. Like, I love
Happy Hemmer.
Have they used like recordings of people? Because that was something I'm like, they never show like memories of people through recorded video in Star Trek, as far as I remember. This seemed like a one-off. It was done well, though.
They did it in Discovery with Ariam in season 4, and that was the cybernetic bridge officer, and they kind of brought her back to kill her off. It was one of those like, she's background, but now she gets a story. Now we're going to kill her. But she was remembering the accident that kind of put her in the cybernetic body. So they did use recordings for that, but from time to time, yeah.
But overall, I thought this episode was pretty solid, especially how like it handled the two different ways that people handle grief by like pushing people away or feeling like they're going nuts. Having experienced, parts of both, I can relate, and it was very good to see how that worked, and just how they handled it. I know that I got picky on Kirk the last time he appeared. This time he was I liked him this time.
He was a different Kirk last time, though. It was a different timeline.
I know, and we already had that argument. I'm aware of this.
Yeah. I mean, we've had two alt Kirks in this series. We had one last season and then one this season. Two separate alt Kirks, and then we've had two real time Kirks. One of which was a tag at the end of Tomorrow, and then we had this, and then he's coming back for the musical episode because you saw him in those clips.
Yeah, I did. So, but I really like how this particular series is helping to de-zap Brannigan Kirk.
Yes.
Which I am thrilled with, because
agreed.
Most of the time when I have to bring up Kirk, everyone's like, oh, this, and they're talking about either JJ's version of Kirk, which is awful until like parts of Beyond, and then
Kirk Fu,
and then just the popular culture vision of Kirk, which is Zap Brannigan.
Right.
So it's very nice to see, like, is he a ladies' man? Sure, but he's not a jackwagon about it.
Right.
Like Uhura said, I'm not interested. He's like, ooh, okay, fine. I just thought you needed a friend. Well, she's like,
it's funny the contrast that versus how gross Chris Pine was in that 2009 movie when he's hitting on Zoe Saldana at the bar in the beginning. Oh yeah. That's
redemption there because they're also at the bar.
Full body shudder, but him just being gross. Yeah.
So, but that was something that I really appreciated about this episode. Like, Kirk is very present. Like, she's like, "Oh, I think I found something," and he's like, "You wait for me there. Don't go in there alone."
Right. Horror movie trope.
Well, yeah. And then
can I ask a question?
How it works?
Oh, here, and with Todd's questions, I absolutely love it. Please do.
Who runs the bar on a starship? In considering it's not a holodeck, I'm like, is that somebody's role? Are they like brought in? I don't remember.
Guinan on the 1701D was a civilian, but there are ostensibly no civilians on the 1701 that we're aware of. So I don't know, somebody in special services or something.
Air Force services. I know services, and they do them. Like, but we didn't run bars. We didn't run bars in the Air Force. So I don't know.
Jen's raising her hand.
Okay.
As of now, Chapel's not in Starfleet yet. She is on a liaison.
That is correct. Yes, that is something that gets forgotten.
Program. I don't know. Maybe they've got a culinary program that they are hiring someone on to do. Maybe that's a job that a lower decker has to do.
There you go.
To be a contractor.
To be a bar hop. Yeah, I would think so.
Because on a Navy fleet, you've got someone doing services of being a chef and those things. Those are military individuals in the Air Force. Right. You had that running channel. I just thought like running a bar. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I just thought it was weird. I'm like, okay, well, are you the bar? Like Isaac from the Love Boat is just brought on to risk his life to serve like beverages. It's kind of interesting.
Funny is I feel like we don't actually end up seeing a bartender, or maybe I'm just ignoring it that you see anybody actually serving the drinks. People just have drinks, but there's no replicators.
There was someone, you saw hands and a not-Starfleet uniform.
It's just hands. So just cousin it. It's just cousin itting it. So
exactly.
Everything's kind of been said. I do love the special piece of continuity paid because I watched the Menagerie after I watched this episode. When Kirk mentions hey, have you ever met Christopher Pike? No, I met him one time when he was promoted to fleet captain, which is exactly what happens in this episode. But then he kept saying, "Oh, it's temporary," and then he gets that cool badge, which I would turn around and buy from fan sets, but I'm not a fleet captain
like
anymore.
A weird retcon cop out. Like, we need to be in line with continuity because he was a fleet captain, but we don't want to have him a fleet captain the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it was kind of fun.
I thought it was kind of
to make it sort of technically true, I think.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like the technically correct does make you correct.
Yes.
But
very true. Yeah. Very true. Oh my goodness. Jen, go ahead.
And I just want to also give props to Pelia in this one too. I completely forgot to mention her in the last episode that I was in here talking about, and her insight is just it's so good that she's able to see kind of what Una's problem is with her. And she's kind of able to sort of drop some of these nuggets of wisdom to help characters along, kind of like Guinan does.
Right. There you go. That is her role. And she is also, again, a very long-lived alien. So, oh my gosh, you guys, we've never had a segment one run quite this long, but this is great. We also just ended up with this great confab of people. So this has been absolutely fantastic. So we're going to wrap this up. Peter and I will be staying on to talk about Enterprise, but let's go around the horn. Kate, where do people find you out there?
You can find me on Instagram at Quintessential Geek, and you can find me on Twitter at Q_T Geek.
Excellent. Todd.
At Oxtra for all things Twitter, which is X, and Threads. I believe I'm Todd Oxtra because I think it's Facebook on Threads, and Seek Friends Unite is also on Threads as well.
Excellent. Jen?
I have a Linktree, which is Linktree/Jen Watson Art. There you'll find my Instagram, my Facebook, my Etsy shop, and any other projects that I may have going on right now.
Awesome. Good deal. All right. Well, we're going to take a brief pause for station identification. Thank you, everybody, for joining up, and we will be right back. All right, cool. We're back. Man, that was fun. 40 minutes of some resounding conversation. But there are only 2 remaining to come back and talk about Star Trek Enterprise. Peter is always good about dressing up. I have kind of given up. My camera doesn't give me a good angle to do uniforms, but I feel like I should recommit myself. So we'll see what happens after I get back from Vegas. Just as a reminder, we will be taking a 1-month hiatus because our next normal episode that we would be putting out would happen during a time that we can't record it because we'll be in Vegas. But we'll be back to finish up Enterprise at that time and also to talk about episodes 7 and 8 of Strange New Worlds. But not to put the cart before the horse, we are talking about Star Trek Enterprise Segment 3, episodes 13 through 18, continuing the Xindi arc as we move forward. So let's get it started with episode 13. Peter, take us away.
All right. Episode 13, Proving Ground, aired December 6th. No, aired January 21st, 2004. The in-universe date is December 6th.
Right. Whoops.
Directed by David Livingston, written by Chris Black. Xindi scientists test their new planet-killing weapon in an asteroid field as Captain Archer is suddenly assisted by Andorians.
Ooh.
Expanse.
I love it. We're getting Shran back in this episode. The delightful Jeffrey Combs, which I have gotten to know him through the cruise. I've gotten to know him through Grand Rapids Comic-Con earlier this year, the spring show where he stopped by our booth and chatted up April and myself and Missy. What a great guy. And he's Star Trek's everyman. So anything that he touches is going to be pretty fantastic. And we get another Andorian crew member in this, his eventual love interest, and her name is, help me out.
Oh, dang.
You see what I mean? You'd have to click on the link and look it up. But yeah, another female, a female Andorian, which is the first one we really get to spend a lot of time with. But we end up finding out in a later episode that the two of them become an item. Talis, thank you. As she kind of spars with Lieutenant Reed to set up the Andorians' ultimate aim, which is to grab this Xindi test weapon.
Acquire the weapon.
Acquire so they can take it back to further their war with the Vulcans. But
yes.
I think that, Combs as Shran really exhibits a lot of charm and a lot of kind of disdain in the fact that you can tell he doesn't really believe in this mission, but he's quote unquote following orders and doesn't like to be at odds with Archer because you can tell that he's really come to respect him. So I really dug this episode. I thought
this is a good episode.
Yeah, I like the duality of that without a doubt. And in the end, obviously, the Andorians don't get the weapon. They end up giving it up so that our people can continue with their mission.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add.
Yeah,
it's a good episode. It's good. I love seeing the dynamic between the two. I think this is one of the first times you see the interior of an Andorian starship, which is fun.
Yeah.
So, it's a slightly different take on what we've normally seen. Most of the controls are behind the captain. We only really ever see that on Klingon ships. So it's interesting how that works. So yeah, it's a good episode. Shran's always fun to see. I love his some of it's feigned, but some of it's real disdain for everyone around him.
Right.
So it's not even just the humans, everyone.
Right, everybody. And I love it. And Andorians, although they were introduced in TOS, have really become property of Voyager. The same way the Borg, I feel like, really become property of Voyager because of the ultimate development of the species and kind of learning about the nuances.
The Enterprise really helped develop like the two species that helped found a Federation that we really knew nothing about. Right. Which were the Andorians and the Tellarites.
Right.
We saw the Tellarites once in the original series, and that was it. And we all were like, "Oh, they're the pigmen."
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah,
not much. We knew they were grumpy, and that was about all we knew about them.
Grumpy pigmen.
And so then Enterprise comes along and then takes the end. Like, this is where it being a prequel and playing with the stuff that we knew happened but didn't know the details. This is where it really shone, and helped develop those cultures in a way that did not contradict anything we saw before and really helped flesh out some of the things that we hear about them later on.
Exactly.
So,
cool. Yeah, no, I really dug this. It was great to see that. And again, it really proliferates itself. The next time we see Shran, which is later in the season, he does actually help execute the finality of the arc. But we get more play with him, certainly in season 4. So, all right, moving on. Episode 15, Harbinger, the nude episode.
Wait, 14. We're on 14.
Oh, sorry. Oh no, I don't want to break up the nude episode. Sorry. Episode 14 is Stratagem. Mike Vihar is the director, a stalwart of the franchise. Showrunner again is Terry Matalas, the guy who is absolutely at the forefront because he was one of the real masterminds behind Star Trek Picard. But he got to start here and on Voyager. Teleplay by Mike Sussman, again a regular. Came out in Feb of 2004. A Xindi scientist, Degra, is tricked into giving Captain Picard information about the location of the new super weapon. Ooh, the subterfuge episode. Yeah, so we see, I was going to say Picard, we see Archer kind of fabricating a situation where he and Degra are refugees escaping prison after 3 years of basically what we saw, basically kind of the storyline we saw in Twilight. Earth is wiped out, but also after that, in this fabrication that this yarn that Archer spins, that the Xindi factions went back to fighting with each other and about near wiped out their race as well. So they're doing all of this in kind of a fake shuttle. Think about the end of Captain America, the first Avenger, where they've got Cap in that fake room, and they're trying to ease him into the fact that he's in 2011 after being in the ice since 1945. It's kind of that, but with the purpose of eliciting information out of him, which they do finally get. And they do
after some hiccups.
After some hiccups. Well, it wouldn't be dramatic storytelling or Star Trek. Star Trek or dramatic storytelling in general if there weren't, basically some hiccups. But this was great. I feel like we were moving the overall plot line of the season forward in a good direction. We're not introducing Degra because we've seen him in several episodes prior to this, but through this, and Archer's kind of exploitation of knowledge of him, you learn about his background and kind of what motivates him, and he is, much like as we continue to learn, like many of the Xindi, or I should say the nice Xindi species, not
the non-reptilian Xindi.
Yeah, the reptilians and the insectoids, who are the really bad blokes of the batch. They're acting out of fear that they're being fed by these sphere builders, which we're going to learn quite a bit about in the next episode. But yeah, I like this. Like I said, this season is building upon itself. We're moving in another little component here and getting our people ever closer to finding what they need. So yeah, I thought this was a great addition.
Oh yeah, this was one of those episodes that I instantly loved when I watched it. I love like the subterfuge and the sneakiness about it, because the first minute you see it, you're like, wait, are they doing some time travel weirdness? What's going on here? And then all of a sudden you see the screens on the outside, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so then, dramatic irony, what's going on. One of the characters doesn't. It's it's great how that works. And the acting between, I forget who plays Degra, but
Randy Oglesby, I think is his name. Yeah.
Yeah. So between him and Archer, it's just how this is acted, how it's written it's very, very well done. And it definitely helps us. One of the things that I really find helpful in a lot of these sorts of things, especially because everyone likes to crap on this season about like, oh, it's written only in response to 9/11, but how they humanize Degra and how it's not just like, these are all just evil. Oh no, like they
very, very one-dimensional, twirling the mustache.
Yeah, so they really like, they're not Snidely Whiplash. They make them like good people. It's there's something going on here. Like he has a family. So it's one of those things that I like to see. Now, don't get me wrong. I like my pure evil villains too. I like my Saurons. I like my Emperor Palpatines.
We got plenty. Yeah.
But to have a well-written, not forced, sympathetic character who is currently an antagonist, is just kind of a nice thing to see, especially in this very tense situation where you have a lot of emotions running really, really high on the Enterprise crew, and then they have to come to terms with the fact that, just like when we were talking last time about the episode with the Arboreals, where you start to see that these are people who are afraid, not evil, just evil incarnate that just happens to visit tragedy upon Earth.
Right. Motivated by fear for their own survival, and then willing to go to extraordinary measures to try to protect that. And
very poignant, especially for today.
Very poignant, especially for today. Exactly. So I really dug this. So okay, well, I know I precipitated this, but episode 15, the nudie episode, is all yours, Peter.
Oh, great.
I know. Sorry, I know.
Episode 15.
Make you uncomfortable. My bad.
Harbinger. Directed by David Livingston. Script by Rick Berman and Brandon Braga. And teleplay by Manny Cotto.
The R.I.P. Manny Cotto.
Aired February 11, 2004. The Enterprise encounters a dying alien, one of the sphere builders, for the first time. So, this one's an interesting one. We finally get to see some of the behind the scenes on what's going on in the Delphic Expanse. So that's good. We also get, I guess, this is one of those episodes that does have like important A and B plots.
Yeah, true.
And they're not both crap.
Well, yeah, and they barely touch,
they don't interact basically at all. So you see, like, we get to find out that the sphere builders are making these things to alter space so that they can live in our dimension, and it makes it so that it's uninhabitable for basically everyone else. So that's like the important, like, overarching plot thing going on here.
Right.
And then we also have Trip and T'Pol finally, like, get a little bit together, and then you basically see like their relationships start to come back to life.
They're kind of like a high school romance, because you see Trip, when the episode opens, there's a young lady who's one of the Makos, kind of getting massage or whatever. Trip attempting Vulcan neuropressure, but it's pretty highly sexualized. She gives him a big smooch, and then T'Pol, who we know has been suffering from earlier in the season from the Trellium D poisoning, and it's kind of eroding her, emotional blocks, her mental blocks. So she is becoming a little bit more in touch with her emotions. And, for the last, 16 episodes of her, being in close physical proximity with Trip, at the end we get the very famous and cut for syndication. You see her from the back when she disrobes, and you got the full shot of her booty. Quite delightful. But then obviously she and Trip get down. But then you have a scene at the end that inspired a great meme when she says, "Well, that was part of my experimentation in human sexuality." And then she's doing this. She's sipping her cup.
Yeah.
And moving her eyes around. he's like, well, maybe we should forget the whole thing happened. What's interesting is they don't get together again for another 6 years. And I'm like, man, I find that kind of hard to believe that they never spending that much time together. Eventually it didn't like, hey, have a couple of drinks. Look, we're all human. Well, okay, Trip is human. But no, that was,
Paul would find that remark insulting.
I'm sure she would. Well, hopefully Trip found some consolation with Corporal Cole because she was very interested in him. But anyway, yeah, you're right. It's we have the very sci-fi plot, and then we have the very CW sitcom-y, regular ass kind of plot line. And you know what? That's okay. I think the two of them did great. Obviously, at the end of it, the sphere alien gets up and they try to stop him, but they can't do it, and then he gets away, and we're left with a little bit more perspective on kind of where things are going, which is great because we're building to a crescendo. It's episode 15 of 24, so we're getting pretty close. So, all right, moving along to an episode that I wasn't super happy about, but it was well produced. Episode 16 is Doctor's Orders, directed by Roxanne Dawson. So Roxy, as they call her, Blonda Torres from Voyager. Chris Black did the writing from February of 2004. The Enterprise passes through a trans-dimensional disturbance. The crew is put into hibernation, leaving Phlox to control the ship. This was a photocopy of an episode of Voyager. And couldn't stand, it was completely pointless. Could not, it had no resonance on the overall makeup of the season, didn't further the plot. 100% was not paying attention at all when this was playing. I just didn't care for it even a little tiny bit, and that's all I got to say. I don't remember anything about it. Because again, there's an episode of Voyager, same thing. Voyager had to go through.
I mean, you get Phlox walking around naked on the ship. So
you know what? If that's your jam, that's totally cool. I mean, if the Voyager episode would have been like that and Seven was walking around naked, I would have been much more on board. But yeah, in that Voyager episode, it was Seven and the Doctor had to keep the ship going, and she was hallucinating and blah blah blah, and it's all of the same beats, and it's kind of some of where you start to see that you're really seeing bits and pieces throughout all of Enterprise, the cracks in the franchise formula, where you're like, it's really starting to. We've been going at this since 1987. We're just repeating itself. I feel like this was beat for beat of that Voyager episode, which was called. I don't even. It was so.
One.
No, what I thought.
No, one is something else.
One was the one with the futuristic drone. The drone who combined with the Doctor's holographic emitter. This one was called like Alone or something. It was super duper generic. So yeah, this was a total miss for me. Didn't like it in the slightest. Well, and Peter's looking up the name of the episode. If you're not watching us on YouTube,
it's called One.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was the one with the Borg, but apparently not.
Maybe that one was called Drone. I don't know.
That one was called Drone. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. But anyway, your thoughts?
This does have some good Phlox stuff, and it does have some funny things because this T'Pol that's running around with him is just a hallucination. There's some things that are very un-Vulcan that she does.
Yeah.
So that's kind of amusing, but it's not a great episode.
Yeah.
All respect to John Billingsley, it's not a great episode.
And again, I enjoy John Billingsley on a personal level because, we interviewed him on our Patreon segment. I look forward to seeing him, certainly at Vegas. And I know he was going to be on the cruise last year that didn't end up happening. Delightful guy, very fun to talk to, very, very kind and generous as far as his time that he spent with us. And I love the character, but loving the character doesn't mean they're always going to get a great script or they're always going to have a great, occasion to really showcase what they do. So, so we kind of let this one go, and then we move on to
it's not amazing,
better things. But. Yeah, it's not amazing. So anyway, the next episode I really kind of dug on. Episode 17 is Hatchery. Directed by Michael Grossman, and the screenplay by Mike Sussman from Feb of this a couple days after my birthday, Feb 25 of 2004. Captain Archer becomes overly protective of an insectoid hatchery to the point of endangering their mission. This was a pretty cool episode because you got, early on they find a crashed insectoid ship. I would say they beam down, but they shuttle pod down to kind of check it out. Archer catches a spray of goo in the face, and as we find out throughout the episode, it has encoded him to the hatchlings within this ship. It's revealed that insectoid ships are all essentially generational ships. They all have a nursery.
Well, they kind of have to be because they don't live that long.
Yeah, yeah, like insects. But because of this spray, because of this encoding, Archer becomes completely obsessed with making sure that these little hatchlings can survive, to the point that he's going to, take the ship's antimatter, basically almost stranding them, to make sure that the ship can stay afloat. To the point that he's got to relieve senior officers, and Major Hayes gets in the mix, and then Archer. Oh God, we didn't even touch on the fact that the C story in the episode back there was the fight between Hayes and Reed, which was absolutely fantastic. But it was played. Yeah, it was played out a little bit more in this, in so much that Hayes is the only one that kind of stays loyal to the captain, because Hayes is a very military kind of guy. You follow orders, you don't question them.
Yeah, chain of command doesn't get.
Yeah, exactly. So I found this to be kind of a cool departure, a very sci-fi kind of angle, and a way to describe, a way to explore a species that unfortunately we've not really learned much about since. But I thought this was pretty well done.
Yeah, it was, and again, I think this was another episode where Enterprise went out of their way to show that the insectoids are not completely evil. And they do that by showing they're young and how they care for them and how they have like safeguards to make sure that they survive.
Yeah.
So there is not a whole lot of effort to help us feel compassion for the adults when they show up.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Sharks.
Yeah. Exactly.
But this was another one where they kind of helped us out with that one. And so there's some of that good stuff. And then a lot of the character dynamics with Hayes and Reed and,
yeah.
And I mean, there's part of me that likes the episode. There's another part of me that's like, this is another episode where Archer loses his mind.
Right.
They kind of like to do that.
Right. Yeah. And just like kind of like what they did with, Janeway, you'd have an episode where she's like, well, she's acting blah, blah, blah. But at the end of it, it's kind of explained away, or you kind of see the perspective of it. So, yeah. But in this case, it was like, the captain's lost his whatever. They did it with Picard. They did it with Sisko sometimes. But this was purely chemical. He was being affected. And And but at least you saw the crew kind of pull together, and found out that Hayes can't really be trusted to be objective because he's a military man. So he was true to his own character in marching to that fife, you know what I mean, as opposed to looking at things objectively. So no, I thought that was really interesting, and really, even though we've not seen anything about the Makos beyond Enterprise, because the Makos as an organization were clearly dissolved as the Federation integrated into Starfleet after 2161. So several years after this episode took place, it was interesting to see that they were the last Earth-related vestige of the militaries that we kind of have now, of the very strict march to the drumbeat. So I thought that was pretty interesting. All right, cool. Episode 18, take us home.
Episode 18, Azadi Prime. Directed by Alan Croker, written by Rick Berman and Brandon Braga. It was teleplay by Manny Cotto. Aired March 3rd, 2004. Finding the superweapon on Azadi Prime. Captain Archer embarks on a suicide mission to destroy it, and Enterprise suffers a devastating attack.
Oh my God, this was a gem! This was the culmination of, and again, we're down to the last 6 after this, so we've really gotten to a fever pitch. Degra is, we find Archer finally addressing some of the Xindi, making this case, but while the arboreals, the primates, the humanoids are obviously willing to at least entertain what he's having to say, it's not going to happen with the reptilians. The reptilians are very much the one-sided Billy Zane from Titanic, your Snidely Whiplash, your twirling mustache kind of villains who, the insectoids, team up with the insectoids, and they lead a lethal attack on Enterprise, one of the worst that you end up seeing. The ship is absolutely devastated, and attacked, overwhelmed.
It's damaged through the rest of the season, so there's a lot of good visual continuity here.
Yeah, it really reminded me of what we're seeing, because even in this point, we're just barely starting to see what we see in Battlestar Galactica. The ship gets messed up, the ship stays messed up. There's no base to go get it fixed, no replicators to make new parts. Because you see the ship destroyed to the part that we know that they lose, over 15 crewmen, because you see some of them blown out airlocks and the ship is blowing up. Unfortunately we're leaving you on a cliffhanger because we see the ship
part one kind of.
Yeah, we see the ship kind of flipping into oblivion and the bridge burning around T'Pol, and she's got really big eyes like, man, he leaves me the ship and this is what happens. Whoops.
Well, crap.
He's gonna take the keys back after this one. This ain't happening. But this was really great. And this was the episode, if I'm not mistaken, that we get Daniels and a glimpse of the future where we see
Enterprise
the most futuristic Enterprise we've had to date, which is the Enterprise J from the 26th century. I remember correctly. Remember the time frame?
Yeah, I think it's the 29th.
29. Yeah, that's right. That's his time frame. No, I take it back.
No. It's
all right. Yeah, click on the link. Because again, I say the most futuristic Enterprise. We've not seen an Enterprise in 32nd
26.
century.
Yeah, 26.
Yeah, 26. So this is the latest Enterprise that we see, unless I'm absolutely not remembering that we see one in
another one because we haven't. Discovery has not revealed their Enterprise. Yeah. They're unlikely to, in my not so humble opinion.
Right. But this was pretty great. So yeah, we see the Enterprise J, which Archer is on, but even to see the graphs of it, it has a translucent hull that you see, green space inside of it, and just all kinds
bigger on the inside.
It's bigger than apparently when they show graphs of it, you can fit all the other Enterprises inside of it. That's how big it is.
It's massive.
Yeah, it's really pretty cool. So yeah, this is pretty spectacular. So I enjoyed this. And again, awesome cliffhanger back in, the days where we really had cliffhangers, week to week. Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, we're doing that. We do that obviously with streaming content now with Star Trek anyway. We do have to wait a week to do it. But yeah, the stakes were really high. Like, are people going to die? Or we've already lost so many of, the background characters, what else is going to happen? So, this was great. It's a great way to cap off this segment, and we're getting ever closer to the finale. So, well, cool. All right. So, as we always do when we do one of these segments, let's pick a favorite and let's pick a least favorite. I think it's going to be easy, at least for me, but you go first. Least favorite episode.
Least favorite episode is probably Doctor's Orders.
Same.
Like, no hate on Billingsley or Dawson. You did your job, but it's just not a. It was
recycled script.
Yeah, it was a redone script. It wasn't that interesting.
Can't do much.
It's got good moments. It's got Porthos, but it's just not great.
Oh, Porthos! I know. All right, how about a favorite?
There's
some good ones here.
There's like 3 that I really like here.
There can only be one. Yeah.
I love Azadi Prime. It's difficult here.
Yeah. I hear you.
I think I'm gonna go with Proving Ground.
Okay.
Simply because of Shran.
Oh God, Jeff Combs he's the best. He's the best. No, I look forward to seeing him in Vegas. He was just not that I think we're pals, but I've enjoyed the time I spent with him so far. He's just truly, as a human being, he's a nice guy. So again, Doctor's Orders, totally useless, as we've already said. I'm gonna go with Harbinger. Because again, we had kind of a cool threefold. We had a great sci-fi story with the Sphere Builder. We had the dick swinging contest that was Reed versus Major Hayes, and their great fight, just beating the shit out of each other. It was kind of fun. And then you had the very real human aspect of jealousy of the love triangle between Cole and Trip and T'Pol. And then you got to see her butt, which, you know what, I got to tell you, I didn't really have a problem with that. And I know they subsequently edited it in syndication, but I watched it when it was on. Thank you very much, UPN. I appreciate it. And it's probably on the DVD. But I watched it on I watched it on Paramount Plus, so I'm not sure. But yeah, that was That's my take. So cool. All right. Well, that wraps up the show. We've had a great one. Again, one more time, we're going to be taking a little hiatus because a bunch of us are going to be in Las Vegas. We're not going to have a chance to record again. When we come back, we're going to be covering episodes 7 and 8 of Strange New Worlds. Even though 9 and 10 will have aired, we're going to stretch that out a little bit because then we'll segue right into, once we get to September, into talking about Lower Decks. So I'm very excited. But Peter and I will be wrapping up talking about Enterprise Season 3, and then we'll be moving into Next Generation Season 4, which I'm very excited about, and that'll probably give us a chance to bring in not just Peter and I, just because while Kay is very kind of anti-Enterprise, I know she loves TNG, so we should have a little bit more mixture.
TNG's what's not to love?
It's very much universal. So, Peter, I know that you're a little shy in the social media, but if people want to connect with you, where do they check you out?
If you want to find me, I'm at Petrus Aquinas. As I say, you can find me. I just don't do a lot.
That's a place to start. And as always, you can find me over on Twitter or X if you prefer. I'm at the C3. Go ahead and spell it out. Peter, myself, my lovely wife April, Kay, and Missy are part of the USS Grand Petoskey. That is one of the largest chapters of Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Club. We are based here in West Michigan, but I am actually the regional coordinator of Region 13, which includes Michigan and Eastern Canada. If you're a Trekker within the sound of my voice and would like to connect with other Trekkers in your neck of the woods, find us on socials, Grand Petoskey, or on a website of that same name, and we can help you out. So I'll say goodbye. Friends, as always, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.